NFL divisional round is here, and we have some really, really good matchups. Jags, Chiefs, Giants, Eagles, Bengals, Bills. That one I'm probably the most excited for. And then Cowboys and 49ers. If you guys are new, my name is DK, and I make content for NBA, NFL DFS, as well as Prize Picks. If you guys are not familiar with Prize Picks, it is a player prop site where you build 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 player props, can win up to 25 extra money. They have basically every single sport you can think of. So if you guys want to give it a try, you can use the code DKDFS for 100% match up to $100. That's a free $100 to play with on the site. I'll also have a link down below. And if you want more content, whether it be for DFS or Prize Picks, also have my Patreon linked down below. All right, so let's just get right into the video here. And we're going to go position by position, kind of talk about the players I have some interest in, some contrarian options possibly, and yeah, go from there. So let's first talk about the Vegas odds. So the first game is the highest over-under right now with the Jags and Chiefs, currently sitting at a 53 over-under. Giants and Eagles at a 48 over-under. The Eagles are 7.5-point favorites. Again, the Chiefs 8.5-point favorites. They're the biggest favorites on the slate. Not a big surprise, though. Bengals and Bills right now sitting at 48 over-under, 5-point spread there. And then Cowboys, 49ers, 46.5 over-under. The 49ers are 3.5-point favorites. We'll start off the quarterback position. You got to make some really, really tough calls on this 4-game slate because we have Patrick Mahomes, we have Josh Allen, and we have Jalen Hurts. And they all look good. So this one will kind of come down to ownership. I'll track it as it comes closer to lock. But yeah, obviously I've interested in all of these quarterbacks. I don't think that's a hot take. Oh, like, actually, guys, I don't like Josh Allen. No, like I like all of these quarterbacks. Hurts the guy with the most rushing upside, in my opinion. Like this matchup for him. Again, Josh Allen's got rushing upside. Mahomes, not as much rushing upside, but just a massive, massive ceiling with the way that the Chiefs run their offense. So I like all the top quarterbacks, and I don't think that is a hot take here. Again, 8K for Mahomes, 7.8 for Allen, 7.6K for Hurts. You got to make some really, really tough calls in this one. Like I said, for me, if I'm going to play one of these top-end quarterbacks, it's probably going to come down to ownership. I'm going to monitor it closely throughout the week. Like if one of these quarterbacks is a lot lower owned than the other two, then I'm probably going to go with that guy. In the mid-range, more contrarian options with guys like Burrow and Prescott and Trevor Lawrence. Not a ton of interest in these guys. If I had to pick one, I think I like the ceiling the most on Joe Burrow in this game environment. I think this game could be a shootout, definitely could be back and forth. So we've seen a couple big games from Joe Burrow this year. You know, we saw that 140 bomb, a couple 30 fantasy point games from him as well. So I think if you're going to play someone in the mid-range, it would be Joe Burrow. Again, Prescott in a tough spot against the 49ers, nothing more than a contrarian dart throw. Lawrence, I mean, this game should be a shootout. They should be playing from high, and that's the positive. But I think if I was to play one of these cheap quarterbacks, it actually would be Daniel Jones. He's been running the ball a lot recently. 78, 91 yards in the ground over the last couple of games. He also had a rushing touchdown. Yeah, I think if I'm going to spend down, if I'm going to punt the quarterback position, it would be Daniel Jones. Also, again, they're what, 7.5-point dogs in this game? 7.5. So, yeah, I think Daniel Jones would be the punt quarterback I'd look to. Brock Purdy had a good week last week, but I think that was more of an outlier performance from him. So, I would rather go to Daniel Jones if I'm going to punt at quarterback. All right, running back position. So, Christian McCaffrey is going to get a lot of ownership, but for good reason. If you take a look at his snaps last week. So, let's see. Where do I have 49ers on a different screen? So, he played 48 of 65 snaps. You only saw 14 snaps for Elijah Mitchell. And, yeah, the game got a bit out of hand, too, at the end. So, you know, not a ton of worry with Elijah Mitchell taking workload from Christian McCaffrey. Again, in a must-win game, I think he's going to be used a lot like last week. Obviously, is involved in the pass game. Only had 2 catches last week. Normally, he's going to give you a little bit more in the passing game. So, McCaffrey's a good play in both formats. I know Dallas D is solid, but still hard for me to dislike McCaffrey. It's not like he's like super expensive either. He's $8,000. Now, Barkley at 7.9, I think, is also in play. I would prefer McCaffrey to Barkley. Barkley is involved in the pass game. I think my only concern with Saquon is if the Giants really do fall behind early, that, you know, in passing situations, maybe gets phased out a little bit. He still did have 5 catches and 6 targets, but that's my only really concern with Saquon Barkley. Joe Mixon, I didn't love the snaps for him last week. Actually, you saw Samaje Perine out-snap Mixon, 31 snaps for Perine, 26 for Mixon. However, you did see Joe Mixon get a lot more touches. He had, 11 carries and 3 catches as opposed to, I think Perine only touched the ball 2 or 3 times. He had 2 carries. Yeah, so even though Perine outsnapped him, Mixon got more of the work. But yeah, right now, with it basically being a 50-50 split there in the backfield, I think Mixon's more of just a contrarian option. And ETN, so completely different situation from the week before. The week before at Tennessee, Michael Hasty outsnapped him. Last week against the Chargers, when they were playing from behind, he played almost the entire game. He played 64 of the 74 snaps. So if we're going to get that type of workload from ETN again, then obviously I have some interest. They should be playing from behind. You know, he hasn't been super involved in the passing game, but another running back that I do have some interest from tournaments. And then with the Dallas backs, Pollard and Zeke, you did see Pollard outsnap Zeke. I think everyone kind of knows that Pollard is just the better running back at this point of their, you know, Pollard and Zeke's career. So if I'm going to play a Dallas running back, I think I would go to Pollard over Zeke. They're at a similar enough price point where I just like the ceiling a lot more with Tony Pollard. Not get me started here, right? Just this guy has caused me literally immense pain over the last month. Just continuing to bail out the fish and score touchdowns at inflated ownership. So incredibly frustrating. Like week 18, where he had, 4 total touches and still scored a touchdown at like 60% ownership. That was unbelievable. Taking a look at the snaps last week for the Chiefs, or in the week 18 game, 21 snaps for Pacheco, 21 for McKinnon, 17 for Ronald Jones. So they did run a 3-headed monster. That is a bit concerning. Also, Edwards-Helaire could be active as well. I don't know if he'll see any touches, but just wanted to mention that. So, yes, if McKinnon scores, again, I'm going to be really in pain. Right now, again, he is their passing down running back, but he can't continue to average like a touchdown every 2 times he touches the ball. So it just won't continue. If it does this weekend, like I said, I'm just going to be on full tilt mode on Twitter. Just simple as that. All right, Miles Sanders, 5.7K. I mean, he is the RB1 here for Philly. You know, not a ton of involvement in the passing game. That's the downside of Miles Sanders, but they should be playing from ahead. Last, in the most recent game, he saw 29 snaps of the 73. You know, he saw 20 snaps for Gainwell, 24 for Boston Scott. But still think Sanders is viable for tournaments. Pacheco, kind of the same thing. You know, love the workload from last in the most recent game. So just a tournament play at the price. Singletary, so the snaps have kind of been going back and forth with these Bills backs. Like week 18, you saw Cook outsnap Singletary, but in the playoff game, Singletary outsnapped Cook 41-23. So it just seems to go back and forth with these Bills backs. Again, both more just tournament plays with Cook and with Singletary. Elijah Mitchell, also just a tournament play. He saw, what did I would say, 14 snaps it was? Yeah, 14 snaps. I mean, if he pounds one in the goal line, which he did last week, he scored, like, he can get you there. But you kind of need him to score a touchdown if he's only going to play 14 snaps. And then, yeah, that's it. I mentioned Perine. Again, he's playing a lot, but he's just not getting a lot of touches. If you wanted to take a shot on him in large field tournaments, I guess it's okay. Hasty and his snaps went way down after the week before, basically splitting touches with ETN. And then, yeah, Ronald Jones, he also did see some carries. I'm not sure if that happens again. You also, again, see CEH possibly back. Gainwell, he's more their passing down running back for the Eagles. He's 4.1K. I guess he's playable because DraftKings is full point PPR. But, yeah. And you might see a couple snaps for Boston Scott, too. Like maybe a goal line touch or two. He had 9 carries last week for what it's worth and did score. All right, moving on to wide receiver. So the top end guys, they all look good, no surprise. Like Jamar Chase, their number 1 wide receiver, probably going to get double-digit targets. He looks good. Stephon Diggs on the opposite side obviously has a ceiling. He started the game off really high. He had like 100 yards in the first quarter, then kind of cooled off. But both Chase and Diggs, I expect similar ownership on those guys. A.J. Brown, 7.6. I think he'll be a bit lower owned. I think the floor is a little bit lower on him than it is Diggs and Chase, but the ceiling is the same. So I expect his ownership to be a bit lower, but obviously A.J. Brown can go for 30 plus any single time he touches the field. And then CeeDee Lamb. So Dallas didn't really have to air it out a ton in that game. I did nuke the Cowboys -3, so that was nice. But a game that they are, 3.5, 4-point dogs here. Not necessarily the best matchup, so I think that will keep his ownership relatively low, but I still like CeeDee Lamb, and again, I don't think the ownership will be crazy on him. Devonta Smith is 7.2K. Also, I think more of a contrarian option. He's close enough in price to A.J. Brown, where I feel like if people are going to pick one of these Eagles receivers, I think they're just going to go to A.J. Brown. So, but yeah, both the Eagles wide receiver, like you can definitely go to Jalen Hurts, double stack him with Brown and Smith. I don't think a lot of people will do that. We'll see, though. And then we get to the mid-range. So Christian Kirk is 6K in a game they should be playing from behind. I expect a lot of targets. He's been their wide receiver 1. I do like his ceiling here. Deebo Samuel at 5'9" did get some carries. Also is involved in the past game. We saw the big game from him last week. Totally fine going there. T. Higgins at 5'8". You're getting a pretty nice discount from Higgins to Chase. Higgins is 5'8". Chase is 7'8". So Higgins does have a similar ceiling than Chase. I think Chase would provide a little bit of a higher floor than T. Higgins, but I do like the upside here in T. Higgins at sub 6K price point. Juju Smith-Schuster, like he's the Chiefs receiver I feel the best about, even though he's been quiet of late. 4, 3, 2 targets over the last 3 games. I think they'll keep his ownership relatively low. But if you're double stacking Mahomes, and obviously if you're playing Kelsey, I think the receiver I would feel the best about would be Juju Smith-Schuster. Still played a good amount in their most recent game. He played, where is it? Played 43 of the 58 snaps, so still expect a lot of work there for Juju. Ayuk at 5K, kind of just indifferent on him. I think, Deebo has the higher ceiling when these two are both active, but it's not like you can't get a big Ayuk game when Deebo is playing. I just think they're close enough in price where I would give the edge to Deebo over Ayuk. And then we get to the cheaper wide receivers. So I was very high in the Giants wide receivers last week. That worked out in a big way. Isaiah Hodgins went for 27 fantasy points. Slayton, I think, had close to 100 yards. Yep. And Richie James was fine. Had 4 catches on 6 targets. He also, I don't know if Daniel Jones missed him or he dropped it, but he could have had a pretty long catch there as well. But yeah, the Giants wide receivers in a game they should be playing from behind, I think are all a bit underpriced. Hodgins, Slayton, and Richie James, and they played a majority of the game. If you take a look at snaps last week for the New York Giants, you saw Hodgins play 66 of the 72 snaps. You saw Richie James play 43, and Darius Slayton played 65. So I like all the Giants wide receivers. Again, Gabe Davis, I want to see what the ownership comes in on him. Back-to-back, decent weeks. So I guess, he had 10 targets against the Patriots. But Gabe Davis is more that boom or bust play. We saw the boom from him last week. So I wonder, will this inflate his ownership? If it does, like if he comes in at very high ownership, then I'm perfectly fine fading Gabe Davis. Because we've seen massive bust performances from Gabe Davis. We've also seen the ceiling, right? 35 here, 26 in the most recent game. So another one where it's going to come down to ownership with Gabe Davis. If he's going to be relatively low on again, I'm fine going there because I like the ceiling. But if he's going to be relatively popular, I think I'm okay fading. Zay Jones, I think, is one of my favorite options in this cheap end. He's heavily involved, playing a ton of snaps. As I said, they're most likely to be playing from behind in this game. You saw Zay Jones play 73 of the 74 snaps. So I like him quite a bit. 13 targets last week. I think he is very much too cheap. All right. Then you get to some, contrarian plays. Kadarius Toney's 4.1K. McCole Hardman still doesn't look like he'll be back for this game. But in the most recent game, Toney still only played 18 snaps. So that is a little bit concerning. I like the ceiling on Kadarius Toney a lot, but the snaps have not been great. Tyler Boyd did play a lot of snaps. He's $4,000. I think he's a fair value play. He played 52 of the 58 snaps. The Bengals probably will be playing from behind, so don't mind him. MVS, again, another boomer bust option. He should get a healthy amount of snaps. The production hasn't really been great, though, for him. He played 34 of the 58 snaps, so another tournament play, but someone you can pair with Mahomes and GPPs. Michael Gallup's 3.8K. Again, he'll play a lot of snaps, so a lot of these wide receivers look kind of similar. I don't have a lot of super strong takes in these guys. You saw Michael Gallup played 46 of the 69 snaps. Okay, again, I mentioned Hardman, right? He didn't practice. Andy Reid said it's not responding the way he wants it to, so definitely don't think Hardman will be available. Marvin Jones Jr. is 3.6, 7, 6, and 6 targets over the last 3 weeks. Still playing a fair amount of snaps as well. He played 63 of the 74 snaps, so I like Marvin Jones. I do prefer Zay Jones for a bit more, but if you can't afford him and you got to settle on Marvin Jones Jr., I don't think that's the worst guy you have to settle on, right? Juwan Jennings banged up his ankle, but he'll be the slot wide receiver. Nothing more than a dart throw. Probably play about half the game. Quez Watkins should play about half the game for the Eagles. Again, he'll play in the slot. Isaiah McKenzie missed last week, and you saw Cole Beasley and Khalil Shakir kind of split those snaps. Those guys would be playable in tournaments if McKenzie is out. Shakir had 3 catches on 5 targets, and Cole Beasley had 2 catches on 5 targets. And again, they basically split those snaps. Buffalo, so you saw 31 snaps for Cole Beasley and 30 snaps for Khalil Shakir. So they basically split the snaps down the middle with those 2 in the slot. Let's see. Was there anyone else I wanted to mention? Oh, I do want to say T.Y. Hilton snaps went up in the most recent playoff game. He saw a lot more of the passing down situations as opposed to Noah Brown. So you saw 26 snaps for Noah Brown, 25 for T.Y. Hilton. But T.Y. Hilton played at 19 passing plays, where Noah Brown only played at 13 passing plays. So Hilton would be the wide receiver 3. I think I would rather take the shot on over Noah Brown, factoring in what happened last game. And then, yeah, I mean, Watson, Sky Moore probably play a little bit here for the Chiefs. Just, guys you can throw into a Mahomes stack. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to talk about, though. So, yeah, let's move on to the tight end position. Travis Kelce has been kind of quiet of late. Last 5 games, 11, 23, 20, 11, 9 fantasy points. But as you guys know, we know the ceiling is very high on Travis Kelce. So, spending up for tight end, I'm always fine with it. I like Travis Kelce. There's not a ton to say here, right? But Kelce is a good play if you can afford him. In the mid-range, you have George Kittle's at 5'7". Feels a little bit pricey, but he still is running a lot of routes. Dallas Goedert is 4'5". A guy that I think is probably the safest guy if you're going to put into a Jalen Hurts stack, just because he plays the majority of the game, usually gives you somewhere in that like 5 to 8 target range, and is at a fair price point at 4'5". Evan Ingram is 4'3", had 11 targets last week. He's running a ton of routes. 71 of the 74 snaps. I like Evan Ingram on the cheap end. Dalton Schultz had a massive game last week, 2 touchdowns. The only downside I'll say to this is he probably will be a little bit over-owned in tournaments because of what happened last week, but still a guy running a ton of routes. So yeah, like Goddard, like Ingram, like Schultz. I think Knox more of a contrarian play. He did catch a touchdown, but he's kind of like the 4th, 5th option offensively. Still, though, again, playing a healthy amount of snaps. Hayden Hurst is 3.2K. He also got, last week, he played 45 of the 58 snaps. So if you wanted like a punt tight end, someone like really, really cheap, I think it would probably be him or Daniel Bellinger. Bellinger only had 2 catches on 2 targets. However, he still played a lot. He played, let's see, where's the Giants? Played 59 of the 72 snaps. So punt tight ends, I think Hurst, Bellinger would probably really look to. Other than that, it's just backups. If I was to play like a backup tight end, I think it would be Noah Gray at 2.5. He's still playing about half the game or so. Last game, he played 33 of the 58 snaps, ran a route in 15. He's the flatman price, and obviously has Mahomes as quarterback. So I think if I was to take a shot on one of those backup tight ends in a tournament, it would be Noah Gray. And then defense, as you know, I'm going to say this every time. I hate that defense is still included. I mean, any defense, all these defenses are in play. You saw the Dolphins, right? They got a pick 6. Any defense, or was it fumble 6? I think it was a fumble 6. But any of these defenses can score a touchdown, right? So kind of comes down to ownership and what the rest of your lineup looks like. Like, for example, if you have like all chalk in your lineup, you probably don't want to be playing a chalky defense. Whereas if you already have a few contrarian pieces, then okay, it's fine to play a relatively chalkier defense in GPPs. So that's just my general take on defense. Again, I hate it. It'll come down. It's usually the last position that I fill out of my lineup. So kind of come down to what I have left over there. All right, guys. So that's going to do it for the video. Again, if you have been enjoying the NFL DFS content, just make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Keep an eye out for future content. Might be doing a live stream before lock for the 4-game slate. So if you guys are interested, let me know. Can definitely do that. Answer some questions. Go over ownership, all that good stuff. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.